They didn't expect me to be there. Not at a luxury resort party filled with executives in tailored suits and evening gowns. Not me, the sister they'd always dismissed. I stood quietly by the marble bar, unnoticed, while my sister Brooke worked the room like a spotlight was her birthright. She spotted me across the room, tilted her head, and let out a loud, deliberate laugh. "Oh my God, Candace," she said, loud enough to turn heads. "What are you doing here taking a break from? What was it? Freelance unemployment?" Laughter followed. I said nothing. Because 10 minutes later, when the host tapped his glass and announced, "Let's welcome the visionary CEO behind tonight's celebration," the room turned. And I stepped forward. What happened next didn't just silence Brooke. It silenced everyone who ever saw me as invisible. Growing up, I was always introduced as Brooke's sister, never as Candace. At school, at family gatherings, even at church events, I was Brooke's quiet little sister. She was the honor student, the lead in school plays, the local pageant queen. I was the one holding her jacket or taking pictures. I didn't mind it at first. It was easier to fade into the background than try to compete with someone who could charm a room just by smiling. Our parents adored her. Every dinner conversation revolved around Brooke's next achievement. She's applying for internships in DC. She's being flown out for a fashion PR conference. She just got promoted. When it was my turn to speak, I could always tell they were just waiting for Brooke to start talking again. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't even lost. I just didn't shine the way Brooke did. While she was out hosting campus events and building a perfect LinkedIn profile, I was in the computer lab teaching myself to code Python, Java, then SQL, slowly building things no one asked for but I cared about. Little tools, hidden logic, quiet systems. It felt like making something real in a world that only cared about appearances. Brooke used to call it my weird tech phase. "It's cute that you like playing with computers," she told me once, "but eventually, you'll have to come out into the real world and network." I didn't answer. I had already learned silence was more powerful than defending myself. After college, the gap only widened. Brooke landed a dream job at a glossy PR agency in LA within weeks of graduation. I bounced from temp work to freelance gigs, IT support, email troubleshooting, fixing broken networks for local stores. Not glamorous, but I was learning, and more importantly, I was listening. Every client I met had a problem, a data mess, a clunky process, something expensive and outdated. And I started thinking, what if I could build something better? At night, after work, I coded in my small apartment, heat barely working, ramen on the stove. I taught myself UI, UX, ran user tests with college students I bribed with pizza, and slowly, painfully, I shaped a platform. Nothing flashy, just something clean, fast, and smart. I never told my family, especially not Brooke. She wouldn't have understood. Or worse, she would have laughed. That's the thing about people who always shine. They never learn how to see in the dark. And I had been building my whole world there in silence, in shadows, in solitude. And, eventually, in secret, I built something worth stepping into the light for. I stopped counting the number of rejections after the 50th one. Some were polite. "We've decided to move forward with other candidates." Others were brutal. "You don't seem like a good cultural fit." One recruiter looked me up and down on Zoom and asked, "Is this your first time applying in tech?" It wasn't. It was my 100th. Every time I walked into an interview, I felt like I was wearing my sister's shadow. I didn't have Brooke's polished speech or her Ivy League credentials. I had a 2-year degree from a local college, a portfolio of projects no one had heard of, and a quiet way of talking that made people think I lacked confidence. They couldn't have been more wrong. Confidence isn't loud. It's built in silence, layer by layer, failure by failure. It's built in every night you cry, then wake up and code again. For a while, I gave up on the tech world and took a job at a small electronics repair shop. The pay was minimum wage. The owner was grumpy. The fluorescent lights buzzed constantly. But people came in with broken things, Laptops, phones, hard drives, and I fixed them. No one thanked me. No one cared. But every fix was a puzzle, and every puzzle sharpened something inside me. One day, a man in his 60s walked in with an old Toshiba laptop. "It's dead," he said, "and everything I own is in here." I told him I'd try. 3 hours later, I had his data restored, his files backed up, and a cleaner operating system running. He stared at the screen like I'd just resurrected a ghost. Then he looked at me for the first time, really looked. "You're not just fixing things," he said. "You're solving what others don't see." I smiled awkwardly. "It's just logic, patterns, that's all." "No," he said slowly. "It's more than that. You think in systems. That's rare." His name was Gerald Barron, retired, venture capitalist, early investor in 3 major tech firms. I didn't know any of that at the time. I just thought he was another grateful customer. But he came back. At first, it was with more broken devices, then questions, then conversations. He started asking what I thought about enterprise workflow, then data integration, then startups. Until one day, he slid a card across the counter with a single sentence on the back. "If you're ever ready to build something real, call me." I kept that card in my wallet for 6 weeks. And then one night, after another rejection email, this one from a company whose back-end system I could have redesigned blindfolded, I took out the card, stared at it, and thought, maybe it's time. The first meeting wasn't in a boardroom. It was in a worn-down diner off Route 54. Gerald arrived exactly on time, wearing a wool coat that had seen better winters and holding a leather folder under one arm. He didn't bother with small talk. "I have a company that's failing," he said, sliding the folder across the table. "Tech platform. Great product. No direction. They've got 6 months of runway left." I opened the folder, scanning financials, client churn data, a half-formed pitch deck. "Why me?" I asked quietly. "Because they need a strategist, and you've spent your whole life seeing what others miss." I wasn't sure if it was flattery or prophecy. That night, I barely slept. Something inside me, a flame I'd kept hidden for years, flickered to life. By morning, I said yes. At first, I joined under the radar, not as a founder, not as a face. Gerald introduced me to the executive team as a temporary systems consultant. I sat in on meetings, spoke little, listened a lot. They called me the quiet one, assumed I was an assistant. That suited me just fine. In silence, I mapped every broken process, every outdated framework, every blind spot in their growth plan. The company, a mid-sized data automation startup named VerityCore, had solid technology, but no clue how to position itself. Their sales team targeted the wrong markets. Their UX was too complex. Their pricing tiers punished small clients. They were, in essence, brilliant people building in the dark. I knew the feeling. So I got to work. I redesigned their pricing model based on behavioral data, streamlined onboarding from 9 days to 2, built a system that tracked client drop-off points in real time. Quietly, slowly, results started to show. After 6 weeks, revenue ticked up. By month 3, retention jumped 40%. By the end of month 4, Gerald pulled me aside and said, "They want to offer you a formal title, something higher." "I don't want to be the face," I told him. "I just want to build." He nodded. "Then I'll be the face for now. But don't hide forever, Candace. Leaders don't just create systems. They shape the room." I didn't answer, but I knew he was right. Leadership wasn't about the title on a slide deck. It was about who showed up when no one else was watching. It came in a thick, cream-colored envelope, with silver embossing, the kind of invitation that whispers power before it's even opened. Inside it read, "You are cordially invited to a private celebration in honor of VerityCore's strategic turnaround, hosted by Gerald Barron. Attendance limited to select executives and partners. Location: the Summit Ridge Estate, Friday, 7 p.m. I reread it twice. Then checked the guest list. Gerald forwarded the next morning. Names I recognized. VPs, founders, fund managers. And near the bottom, Brooke Taylor, VP of Brand Partnerships, Halverson Co. Of course. Halverson was one of the firms courting Veritycore for a major integration deal. I hadn't known Brooke worked with them, but of course she did, still dazzling her way into boardrooms like she always had school assemblies. "Is this going to be a problem?" Gerald asked over coffee. "No," I said. "It's just unexpected. You can skip it if you want. No pressure." But something inside me said, "Don't." Not out of pride. Not for revenge. But because I'd spent my whole life avoiding rooms like that, letting Brooke define who I was, hiding my work behind other people's names. Not this time. I spent days preparing not just slide decks or talking points, but preparing myself. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not my parents, not Brooke, not even Emma, my best friend. I wanted to walk into that space as I was now, not the girl they used to mock, not the awkward sister, not the quiet fixer behind the curtain, but as Candace Taylor, architect of a company they were all now trying to partner with. When Friday came, I stood in front of my closet for nearly an hour. No sequins, no statement heels, just a perfectly tailored black pantsuit, a silk blouse in Veritycore's deep cobalt blue, and a small lapel pin engraved with the company's initials. Professional, controlled, unmistakable. As the car pulled up to the Summit Ridge estate, I looked at my reflection in the window, the same face Brooke used to call too plain for anything public. But this time, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. Not for confrontation, but for clarity. Because this wasn't about showing her who I'd become. It was about stepping fully into who I already was. The Summit Ridge estate looked like something pulled from a movie set. Polished stone walkways, string lights draped across manicured hedges, waiters in white gloves offering champagne on silver trays. It was a place built for people like Brooke, not for people like me. I kept to the edges at first, observing. Executives chatted in small circles. Deals were already being whispered between sips of wine and tight-lipped smiles. I spotted several faces from meetings I'd led remotely. Funny how different people looked when they weren't framed by a Zoom box. And then I saw her. Brooke. Effortlessly radiant, in an emerald gown that shimmered under the lights, surrounded by a small entourage of clients and junior execs, laughing, always laughing. I should have turned, walked the other way. But her voice caught me. "Candace?" Heads turned. She took a step forward, her smile wide and loaded. "Oh wow, I didn't realize this was your scene." I nodded politely. "Nice to see you, Brooke." "You too," she said brightly. "Did someone bring you as a +1? The way she said it loud enough for the crowd to hear, laced with curiosity so fake it stung. "I'm here with the Veritycore team," I answered, keeping my voice calm. Brooke blinked. "Really? I didn't realize they were hiring support staff." A couple of people chuckled nervously. I smiled. Something like that. But Brooke wasn't done. She linked arms with a tall man next to her, Halverson's VP of Partnerships, if I remembered correctly, and stage whispered, "This is my sister, Candace. She's sort of the family mystery. Disappeared into tech a while back. Still figuring things out." A low ripple of polite laughter followed. I felt the familiar flush rise to my cheeks, but this time, I didn't look away. "She's always been the quiet one," Brooke continued. "Super smart, just not really the boardroom type, you know?" I looked around at the executives she was performing for, people who had no idea they were watching a family play dressed up as business casual. One of them, a sharp-eyed woman in a silver suit, raised an eyebrow at Brooke's tone but said nothing. Brooke leaned in slightly, voice just loud enough. "But hey, who knows, maybe tonight you'll make a connection that leads to something. Don't be shy." And with that, she turned back to her circle, closing me out. It was the same tactic she'd used since we were kids. Public charm, private diminishment. Say enough to sting, but never quite enough to call out. The only difference? This time, someone else had heard it. And they weren't smiling. The room began to quiet as the host, Veritycore's interim COO, stepped onto the small platform at the front of the terrace. Glasses clinked gently, conversations dimmed. A string quartet in the corner softened to a hush. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice warm and steady, "thank you for being here to celebrate not just our survival, but our transformation. A year ago, Verity Core was on the edge. Today, we're thriving." Scattered applause. Nods from familiar faces. But the credit doesn't belong to one department. Or one strategy. It belongs to one person, someone who walked into our building without fanfare, sat quietly in meetings, listened more than she spoke, and then slowly rebuilt the heart of our company from the inside out. He looked across the crowd. "Candace Taylor, would you join us, please?" A silence fell that didn't just hush, it cracked. I heard my name ring through the air like a challenge. Then, all heads turned, including Brooks. She blinked once, then again. I stepped forward, heels tapping against stone. I passed clusters of executives who suddenly stood straighter. I passed Brooks' circle now, silent, their eyes wide, mouths parted, trying to compute what was happening. Brooke herself looked frozen. Her smile had vanished, replaced with something I'd never seen on her face before. Fear. Confusion. Recognition. The COO gestured to the microphone. "This is the woman who didn't just fix our systems, she reshaped our future. Our CEO, Candace Taylor." And with that, the room erupted. Not with cheers, but with stunned, immediate applause. People who had dismissed me just an hour earlier were now clapping, nodding. Whispers passed like wildfire. A man in a tux near the bar muttered, "That's her? She's the CEO?" I stepped up, shook the COO's hand, and turned to face the crowd. I scanned slowly, deliberately, until my eyes landed on Brooke. Her face was pale. Her wine glass trembled in her hand. And in that moment, I felt nothing cruel, no vengeance, no gloating, just calm. This wasn't for her. It never had been. "This past year," I began, voice even, "has taught me that leadership doesn't always look like what we expect. It's not about being the loudest in the room, or the one with the biggest title from day one. Sometimes, it's about listening first, about seeing the problems no one else notices, about staying long enough in the quiet to hear what needs changing." No one moved. Not even Brooke. I wasn't born into this position. I built my way here, one piece of broken code, one messy process, one ignored idea at a time. A beat. Then, and if I've learned anything, it's that you don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to believe in what you're building long enough for the right people to notice. The applause that followed wasn't polite this time. It was real. I stepped down. Executives I'd only known through numbers now approached with business cards, praise, and partnership offers. One firm asked for a meeting that very Monday. And then, behind them, Brooke appeared. Her eyes darted nervously. She waited until no one was watching, then stepped in close. I didn't know," she said, voice hushed. "Why didn't you tell me?" I met her gaze. "Would it have changed anything if I had?" She opened her mouth, closed it. "I was just joking, you know," she added quickly. "It was never meant to hurt." But her voice cracked. And we both knew better. I straightened, professional calm returning. "I'm here as the CEO tonight," I said gently. "Let's talk another time, as sisters." Then I turned away, not in triumph, but in choice. Because, for the first time in our lives, I was no longer standing behind her. The party didn't end. But something in the room had shifted. People spoke in lower tones. Conversations tilted toward me. Executives who had once dismissed me as a tech support tag-along now offered compliments with two eager smiles. Some apologized outright for assumptions, for oversight, for not recognizing me sooner. I accepted each one with grace, but didn't linger. I wasn't there for vindication. I was there for vision. Verity Core's momentum had to be maintained. This wasn't the end of a story, it was a pivot point. Gerald approached me near the fountain, a quiet smirk on his face. "Told you they'd see you eventually. I didn't expect it to happen like that." He chuckled. Brooke's face looked like someone pulled the earth from under her heels. I smiled, but said nothing. Then he added, more seriously, how you handle what comes next, that's what really defines a leader. He was right. And that test came faster than I thought. On Monday morning, I walked into my office to find our head of strategic partnerships pacing with his phone. Halverson called, he said. Their board's reconsidering Brooke's involvement after what happened. Apparently, several execs witnessed the exchange. They're worried about optics. I nodded slowly. And your take? He hesitated. Well, she mishandled it, yes. But she's good at what she does, and frankly, she's been instrumental in getting them to the table. I stared out the window for a moment. Then said, set up a call with Halverson's CEO. I'll speak to them directly. An hour later, I was on a secure Zoom link with their top team. I didn't defend Brooke. But I didn't condemn her either. She acted unprofessionally that night, I said simply. But if we're evaluating based on performance, she's delivered results. And I believe in judging people by their full body of work, not just their worst moment. There was silence. Then their CEO said, that's remarkably generous, Ms. Taylor. It's not generosity, I replied. It's strategy. If we cut ties with everyone who's made a mistake, we'd have no partnerships left. After the call ended, I sent Brooke a single message. The deal stands. You'll stay on the Halverson team if you want to. What happens next is up to you. She replied 4 hours later. Thank you. I didn't expect mercy. I didn't deserve it. But I'll earn it. For the first time, her words didn't feel like performance. They felt like growth. And in a strange, quiet way, that mattered more than any applause ever had. 3 weeks after the party, I walked into our Monday leadership meeting and noticed something different. People no longer looked past me, they looked to me. Not out of fear, not because of a title, but because I'd earned their trust not with speeches, but with structure, clarity, and consistency. I'd once thought being CEO meant commanding rooms and giving orders, but I was learning that real leadership wasn't loud. It was knowing when to listen, when to forgive, when to draw a line, and when to leave space for someone to step over it. Changed. Brooke and I never had a dramatic heart-to-heart, no emotional confessions over coffee. But the next time she came into our office for a cross-company briefing, she paused outside my door. I've prepared the new onboarding protocol, she said, and I'd appreciate your feedback. Not approval, not validation, just collaboration. And that meant more. In the months that followed, I began implementing new company policies at VerityCore, not just around innovation, but inclusion. We started a mentorship initiative for applicants without traditional credentials. We launched a fellowship program specifically for women pivoting into tech late in their careers. Not because I was trying to be noble, but because I had lived the alternative, the silence, the dismissal, the assumptions, and I had survived it. More than that, I had rebuilt from it. Gerald retired 6 months later, leaving me with one final piece of advice. Don't just run a company people want to join. Run the kind of company you would have needed 10 years ago. I carry that with me every day. As for Brooke, our relationship remains layered, complex. We're not best friends. We may never be. Too much history. Too many years of playing roles we never asked for. But there's respect now, and mutual curiosity, and sometimes, in the middle of a planning meeting or a strategy call, she'll glance over with something like pride in her eyes, quickly masked, of course. Still, I see it. Because I've learned how to see what others don't say. And I've learned that success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about becoming so grounded in who you are that their opinions no longer dictate your direction. The night Brooke tried to humiliate me in front of a room full of executives could have defined me. Instead, it became the moment I defined myself. Not as the quiet sister. Not as the underdog. But as a builder, a leader, and the CEO who showed up when it mattered most.